it could be pouring down lava outside. They're like, don't worry about it. We can have a barbecue.
Everybody, welcome to another episode of Ryan and Rodrigo. And today we're here with my old friend Ronald, and he's coming to us from North Carolina. And thanks for coming to us today, Ronald. I really appreciate it.
All right, you're welcome, man.
Something like, ever since I've met you, something that's really interesting, unique about you to me, is that you're from Jamaica. And like I have to say, I don't know very many people from Jamaica. And I also have to admit that everything I know about Jamaica is like beaches and reggae, right?
Yeah.
But it is more than that, right? There's more to Jamaica than beaches and reggae, right?
It is. All right. Beaches and reggae are just, what everybody comes in like there. Right. The first time I went somewhere, like somebody said to me, "Oh yeah, Bob Marley," and I was like, yeah, Bob Marley, whatever. And I didn't understand the how far that was in terms of how so many people knew about him and what he stood for. But that's basically beaches, reggae, Bob Marley, and we. That's about it. Yeah.
And Jamaica. Cool Runnings, the movie.
Yeah.
Was it John Candy?
Yes.
Yeah. Classic.
Yeah. I remember.
That's a classic right there.
Yes.
That was historical, right? Those guys really existed?
That actually, of course, it has some bits and pieces of it that weren't true, but that actually is a true story.
That's cool.
That actually is a true story. There was a bobsled team. Everybody thought it was just ridiculous. A couple of guys from Jamaica, never seen snow in their life and everything, going to the Olympics, the Winter Olympics. I mean, we were known for running and stuff like that, but not for that. And then, they just popped up, went there and showed out.
And that was like in your life, right? So do you remember it when you were a kid?
What?
The Jamaican bobsled team. Do you remember that happening?
No, that was not my time. That was probably my mom's time.
Okay.
The Jamaican bobsled team was not actually my time. But I remember the movie. And, my mom and my grandmother talking about it a lot and stuff like that. But that wasn't actually my time. My time was much more in terms of running, Merlin Nazi. That was my time in terms of sports. And then afterwards, Usain Bolt and all of those people became this big thing. But for my time in terms of sports and Olympics and stuff like that would be like Merlin Nazi.
Cool. And how else was like being a kid in Jamaica? Do you remember anything else?
Being a kid in Jamaica was fun. I mean,
yeah.
You climbed trees. You played with box trucks. I don't know if you know, like, the little trucks that you make out of carton boxes and stuff like that with those soda pop covers and stuff like that. That's what we used to do. We used to make slingshots. We call them bingies. You could take a guy's eye out with that. What else? Flying kites, hide and seek. Interesting story. My cousin has a scar right here because of hide and seek, like a massive scar right here because of hide and seek. Dead of night, us playing hide and seek, and I don't know, he probably cut himself on a bottle or something like that. But he has like a scar right here because of it.
Ryan has a scar, just the same place, but from Frisbee, right?
Yeah, from playing Frisbee.
There you go. I guess it's somewhere where everybody has a scar.
Yeah, I jumped into some other guy's rib cage and shattered my arm.
Ooh, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah.
And
I
it
had
left a mark, didn't it?
Yeah, I had some surgeries. This is actually the surgery scar here.
Oh.
And then there's another one here where the bone was sticking out of my arm.
I have that scar right here from dancing samba.
Look at us with our cultural scars.
There you go. You know, we have to have cultural scars.
And then, so Ronald, how old were you when you came to Brazil? And what was it that brought you here?
To Brazil. I was, let me do the math. I was probably like 23, 24, something around there. Yeah, 23, 24. What brought me to Brazil? I was working for a company at the time. I was working for a company at the port, at the wharves. And one of our biggest imports was like beef and stuff like that. And there's one brand in particular, Grace. And she, or it, they would bring in their brand. And I thought all the time that it was just, you know, it was ours. It was 100% Brazil, Jamaican. But it wasn't. When I looked at the brand, I noticed that it said made in Brazil, manufactured in Brazil. And then I found out about like the production of meat and stuff. Like at that time, I was like totally ignorant to Brazil, to be really honest. I thought, in all honesty, no disrespect, I thought Brazil spoke Spanish. Like that's I'm going to be really honest. That's how ignorant I was. I thought Brazil spoke Spanish. I thought Brazilian women looked like those Spanish women from Spain. I will kid you not. That's what I thought. I didn't know about Brazil being one of these big shots in terms of the production of beef, for gas, ethanol. I didn't know any of that information. But I was working at the port, and like I just realized like they were importing meat that day, and it was just like a bunch of containers coming in. I was working for a trucking company. I was just coming in, and I looked at all those docks, and it was just like I was looking at the origin, because the guy at the counter that I had to fill out the docks for, he was saying, where's the container coming from? Where's the container coming from? And I just kept seeing it over and over and over again. Brazil, 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 over and over and over again. And then I turned to somebody beside me and I'm like, where is Brazil? And then the person just started laughing. And, you know, I said it as a joke. And then I went home and I was like really curious, because like all of that. And then at the time, my mom was there. And then she started telling me about it. And then she said, okay, here's the information. At that time, it wasn't, you know, like the internet was there, but it wasn't like now. She said, like, look it up, Google it, find out all the information and everything. Googled it. And I was fascinated with it, wanted to know more about it. And then I ended up there for a while.
And that was what year?
That was, I don't want to lie, that was 2005, I think, 2006. I don't want to lie, don't hold me to that. I really need to look back on that stamp in the passport.
Cool.
After when you came to Brazil the first time, you just stayed, or you came and then you went back to Jamaica?
When I went to Brazil the first time, I stayed for a bit. Went over, renewed my visa for a couple of times, and then I stayed for a while. You know, I just became fascinated with it. It was just like something intoxicating. When I got
Did you come to São Paulo the first time?
I went to São Paulo the first time. When I went there, I went to São Paulo directly the first time. I didn't go to anywhere else but São Paulo. So that's probably why I didn't have this trauma in terms of Brazil, because it just felt like a metropolitan city.
And what fascinated you?
The culture, the people, the language, the laid back lifestyle. I really like that. You know, I really like that about Brazil and the laid back lifestyle. Like everything was on Brazilian time, and I was like, oh, I could get used to this.
And that was in São Paulo. If you had been to Rio,
I went to Rio. I went to Rio afterwards, like long afterwards, and that wasn't even like going to Rio to live in Rio. I went to Rio just to visit Rio, because I'd heard about Rio. I'd heard about Copacabana, and like most of my friends were talking to me like, "Do you live in Rio?" I'm like, "No, I live in São Paulo." Like, "No, but where's Rio?" I'm like, "Rio it's a bit off from me." And like everybody kept saying like, "Why don't you go to Rio? Why don't you go to Rio? Why don't you go to Rio?" And I was like, "All right, cool." Went to Rio, had a wonderful time. Like, real honesty, right now, I think that God like took the time out to like take a pencil and just draw Rio real slowly. You know, I feel like he did like, you know when you have like printed art versus drawn art, it feels different. That's what I feel in terms of Rio.
Okay, not in terms of São Paulo.
São Paulo is nice. I mean, São Paulo is unique. You know, São Paulo it's a big city. It's just like any other big city. That's the thing. It's just like any other big city. I'm a city kid, so I like the whole noise, hustle, bustle. I love that. You know, for other people, they can't stand it. I love it. You know, I need noise and all of that. But you know, like Rio is it's like a big city, but it has that mellow island vibe, if you understand what I mean.
I think I do. And just one thing, when you said that you didn't know about how Brazil was a big shot in terms of exporting beads and what else? Well, all the other things. Brazilian people also don't know about that. Very few Brazilian people know about that. Yeah. We complain about how Americans know only samba and soccer, but that's all we know as well. We just It just happens that we live in the city, so we know there are cities here and buildings. American people, they know football, samba, caipirinha, and not everybody, of course, but they think we are like a jungle. And the difference is that we don't think it's a jungle, right?
I mean, like, to be honest, like, I knew that Brazil had, like, the Amazons. I knew that. I watched movies in terms of Anaconda. So, like, that was still in my mind, in the back of my mind, like, okay, if this plane falls out the sky, I might fall into the river and Anaconda might eat me. So, you know, that was still in the back of my mind. But to say that I knew that there was a city like São Paulo, that would be a lie. That would be a total lie. I didn't know that there was a city like São Paulo. I didn't know that there was something. I knew that there were beautiful beaches, beautiful women in Brazil. I knew that. But the whole mega structure of Brazil, I didn't know that. I really didn't know that.
Right when we were starting I was going to say class because I'm used to class, but our meeting here, you said that you realize you've come to the realization that things just work, right? They work, and when they decide to not work, they don't. But it's the way things. That's true. Things work in Brazil, in America, Jamaica. But how differently do they work in Brazil and in America now that you've been living there?
All right. For one, like I said before, Brazilian time. Everything works on Brazilian time. In Brazil, like, you know, it's common. Like, for me, time is a big deal. My wife will tell you that I'm not exactly the most punctual person, but at the same time, it's still a big deal in the culture that we have, because we still fall under the British culture and so on and so forth. So you will always hear us say that time is money, and that's one of the major differences with Brazil and North America. Time really is money here, all right? And people will really flip out if you waste their time, because they equate it to money. So it's like you're wasting their time, you're wasting their money. And that's one of the major differences that I feel with Brazil and North America, more specifically the United States. You know, like time is a big factor. For example, if I arrive late at work, my pay gets docked. That's not even a question. They dock my pay. I mean, I could plead my case, you know, I was in traffic, blah, blah, blah. But that excuse might fly for like one day. I was sick, I run into some problems, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's just like a one-off situation. If it's like a repeated situation, we have a problem. And they would dock my pay specifically because of that.
I remember just a story. Ryan and I we worked with somebody, and he was always late, like 1 or 2 minutes late, like that annoying kind of late, you know. It's not 10, it's not an hour, it's not 10 minutes, just 1, 2 minutes, but it affects the job, it affects how productivity. So we talked to him and we said, look, you have 5 minutes of tolerance for like when you maybe one day you have a problem and then you need to be late. And then after we talked to him, he started to be late every day, 5 minutes, 7 minutes.
There you go.
And then we talked to him again and he said, oh, but you told me that I have 5 minutes. I said, no, I'm tolerant.
It's not like you can use the 5 minutes, but it's not that you're going to use it all the time.
And he used it every day. And then he was late, like 2 minutes after the tolerance, and I said, all right, just okay, it's okay, just come whenever.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Like, just get there. Don't worry about tolerance. Just get there, please.
Exactly.
And he lived like 10 minutes away. at the most, 10 minutes away.
10 minutes walk.
But I'll give you a joke, Ryan. I'll give you a joke. Like, we go to church, right? And like here, we have to drive to church. And like driving to church here is like, I don't know, like 5-10 minutes driving to church here. Like us in Jamaica, going to church is like 5 minutes away. Like honestly, 5 minutes away. Every time that we went to church in Jamaica, we were late. Every time. Remember that the church is like 5 minutes away walking. When we're going to another church that's like really out of the way, we were always early.
Of course.
So I get that right there.
Yeah. But like how was it like adapting to these differences in Brazil when you came here? Like did it take you a while to like not get angry at people who were late? Did it take you a while to, you said that you were looking forward to enjoying Brazilian time, but like, did you really enjoy Brazilian time or was it stressful for you?
For the first, let's say month, it was fun. You know, like
the first month of like 10 years.
Yeah, the first month of like that, it was fun. It was fun for the first month. And then afterwards, you know, like you want to go back to what you know. You know, you when you're on vacation, it's one thing. When you're in the lifestyle, it's a totally different scenario. And it was like my body was like, okay, you're not on vacation anymore. You know, like some kind of, you need to go back to normal. That's what my body was saying. And like, you know, my body and my brain and every part of me was just like in conflict, because like here, like the culture is saying like, listen, relax, don't worry about it. When it gets done, it gets done. You know, like, don't worry about the time, it will get done. And then my brain is like working overtime and like, no, if you don't do this right now, it's going to be delayed by a couple of weeks or even a month or sometimes a year. And, you know, like that part of me was just always in conflict. And to be really honest, like Brazil taught me how to be a little bit chill in terms of mellow with something. Like not everything required the urgency that it did. Some things required it, like some things really required it, but not everything required it. And that's what probably what Brazil taught me a lot. I feel like, especially like Western cultures, more specifically English-speaking cultures, British related, we are much more, we're detailed in terms of time. We're so hung up on time, and that time is such a determining factor for productivity. Whereas, you know, I think Brazilians have recognized that time doesn't necessarily guarantee that high quality, you know, but at the same time, it's still a factor, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
It's a factor, but it's a minor factor, right? It's not the.
It's not the only thing that matters. Like, I know what you mean about learning, about maybe growing personally because of this.
Yeah.
Like, I've learned now how to be selectively demanding when it comes to time.
There you go.
There you go. When Rodrigo and I had the school, I'm sure that I just frustrated him to no end because I was always, Rodrigo, when is this going to be finished? Rodrigo, finish this. Oh, man. And I just was complaining all the time. But like now, and I'm sorry that I didn't learn this before we started the school. And it took the school to teach me how to not be so demanding all the time and to only demand the very, very important things.
There you go.
To be done.
Exactly. So, the very, very important things.
Sorry, Rodrigo. Sorry that I that I hadn't grown enough as a person, and that it took that to teach me.
We can have couples counseling. So no, but yeah, I noticed the difference of what you said about time, Ronald, especially because I worked with Ryan for a while, and it's exactly what you said. They equate time and money, and time and not only money, time and productivity, their livelihood and everything. So minutes are very precious. They could be home, even if it's not money, but they could be home having a beer. They could be home, and so time is very important. Sorry?
Fishing. I mean, like where I live, it's a big thing in terms of fishing. It's a big thing in terms of hunting. Like, I live in an open carry state. That means, you know, people have their guns, and it's part of the life here. You know, like you go outside and you see people walking around with guns, and it's very common to hear hunting tales at work. It's like people, like they want that time to go out and hunt. And if you take away from their productive time at work, it means that you're entering into their free time of hunting. And it's like they won't have those tales to tell. They won't have that fun in terms of hunting and stuff like that.
But the thing about Brazil is that their free time and work time, it all mingles. And I remember Ryan and I, we talked about how students or clients or customers, sometimes they felt when if they were late, if the payment was late, and we said to them, look, you're late, they complained. And they said, but we're friends. And Ryan said, what? But that's, we are friends, we're still friends. But you're still late. So
exactly.
And they said, oh no, but Rodrigo, I think you should take care of that. I think you should handle that, because Ryan is a bit too correct. He tells me when I'm late, and so I told Ryan, and Ryan asked me, Rodrigo, so what? I don't understand. And I explained to him, no, Ryan. In America, you separate business and personal. In Brazil, we separate nothing. It's everything one big thing.
Yeah. So, like, yep. Yeah. That's it.
And what was your like first impression of Brazil when you first came to São Paulo? Your first impressions of Brazil, Brazilian people, the very first thing, like you said in the first month, yeah, I love this Brazil time thing. So that'd be one example. But what are some other very, very first impressions?
I didn't have the best of first impressions. When I got to Brazil, one of my mom's friend died. So she died in transit. So she had the accident. I was leaving the Tuesday morning. Actually left the Tuesday evening, spent the night in Panama, got the early flight, spent all day traveling and stuff like that. So by the time I got to Brazil, it was like 7 in the night. So she had the accident when I was leaving Jamaica. She was considered brain dead by the time I got to Panama, and she was considered officially dead by the time I was in transit to Brazil, and then she was at the morgue when I landed in Brazil. So I didn't exactly have the greatest first impressions. My first impression of Brazil was actually in the morgue, you know, because we had to go and pay respects and stuff like that. And at the time I was traveling, and that goes to the other part of Brazil that I didn't know about. I was traveling, and of course I didn't take a suit. So, you know, part of going to a funeral is that you have to wear a suit. So I get there and my mom is like, oh, well, you know, we have to do something. I'm like, all right, cool. I thought she was going to say, like, we need to go to a restaurant or something like that. She's like, no, we need to go to the morgue. And I looked at her with this very confused look on my face, like, why would I want to go to the morgue? You know, I hate places like that. I don't even want to go to a hospital, let alone a morgue. She's like, yeah, but this person that was asking about you, she knows that you were coming and everything, and she had an accident and she died. And we have to go and pay our respects. The first question, the first statement that I said to her was, I don't have a suit. I don't have a black suit. So how is that going to go? And she's like, no, don't worry about it. And I looked again and I was confused because, like, how can you go to a morgue or a funeral without a suit? And she's like, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it and everything. And so we went to this morgue, and it's like a funeral home. I only see stuff like that here in the South, in terms of like a funeral home where people go and like go and see the body in like a place and stuff like that. But it's like the Brazilian version of it is what happens here in the South. I went in, like everybody was like, hi, crying, hi, smile, cry, hi, smile, cry. And that was what I was, you know, going through the entire night. Smile, cry, smile, cry some more, really cry and smile. And then, you know, getting accustomed to that part, what Rodrigo just said, in terms of everything is connected, everything is intertwined. Something is serious or somebody dying is connected to friendship and connected to don't worry about it, it's on different time, heal when you can, you know, like death, like, you know, like death is like really, really different. So that was my first overall impression of Brazil in terms of seeing Brazil for the first time. Going home and then like having a shower and, you know, washing off after that, and like, okay, I don't know how to process that, but all right. The next day it wasn't that bad, because my mom had left early in the morning. She went out. I got up, you know, kind of got my bearings. I went outside. We were still living in an apartment at that time. I went out, tried to get my bearings in terms of where stuff was, what was outside. I could hear the kids playing in the yard. There was a basketball court and stuff like that. I heard them playing, and that basically woke me up. The smell was different. That was one of the things that really grabbed me. The smell was really, really different.
Was it in São Paulo?
Yeah,
in
São
the
Paulo.
city.
Yeah, the smell was different. It was not what I was used to. There was a different smell I don't know how to explain it. It was just a different smell that over time I got used to it, but it wasn't a stench. It wasn't a foul smell. It wasn't something bad. It was just different. Um, the noise was different. The whole feeling of the place was just different. Um, but the overall feel of it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. It was actually good. I had really a good feeling the first instance.
And then you were there for like 10 years, right? 10 years. Did your first impressions change? Did you have different impressions of Brazil by the time that you left?
I had different impressions because of different things that I started to understand.
Yeah.
I started understanding Portuguese. I started to get the butt of the jokes. I started to realize how simple some of those things were. I got annoyed at one point because some people were just trivializing some things that were really important. That's one of the things that happened to me over time. I started getting annoyed that people trivialize things, of not understanding the seriousness of whatever topic. Like one of the things that I started to get annoyed with was the politics. I really got annoyed with it because I realized how much the politics was integrated into everything. I started realizing why stuff were the way they were. Like this family owns this and this family owns that. And like, why? And it's like, it's always been that way. Yeah, but why? Because it's always been that way. And that answer would always get me. That answer would always chew at me. Like, yeah, I get that. I understand that. But why is it like that? And then
Why
over
is it
time,
still like that, right?
why is it
It's
still like
that?
Yeah. Somebody said that to me the other day. Like, why is it still like that? And I'm like,
Yeah, I just wanted to know you, Ryan. You asked him about his first impressions on Brazil, and I want to know when you left. You spent 10 years here. What were your last impressions
of Brazil?
Yeah.
Leaving Brazil was I never realized how much Brazil had grown on me. I never realized it until leaving Brazil. Like you left and like you just felt this, like you left a part of you there. Like you were so accustomed to this for almost a decade, and then you just left, and there was just this big I won't say emptiness, but it's kind of like that feeling. It's just like, now what? This is what I've known for the past 10 years. Like, now what? But Brazil's last impression was, because even like leaving, like the guy at passport control, he was just like, all right, I'll see you next time. Like, he was just like, listen, I'll see you next. He's like, you're gonna be back. Like, you're leaving, but you're gonna be back. Like, they all say they're leaving, but they'll come back.
Don't dare not to go back.
Exactly. Like, you'll be back. Like, you want to come back. And like, even on the flight, like, one of the things about the Brazilian flight, because it's such a long flight, you get to think about stuff. There's nothing else to do but sit and think about stuff for like 9-10 hours. And most flights, especially to Jamaica, or that route that I was taking through Panama, was at night. So like you try, like, one of the things that I did in terms of coping mechanism to travel was to like really do a lot of stuff before I left. So when I get on the flight, I'm dead tired. I'd be like, boom, you know, like, but even doing all that stuff during the day, to be really, really tired, I got on the flight and I still stood there or sat there for like 2-3 hours just thinking about it. Just thinking about everything, thinking about everybody, thinking about like what was, what is, what will be, what could be. You know, I just sat there and thought about it for like a good 2 hours. You know, like, and then, you know, like you just, it's not one of those feelings that you quickly forget.
You said that when you came to Brazil that you were like fascinated, and
Yeah.
it was like you were exploring something new and different and completely exotic almost. Do
Yeah.
you think that you got a chance to learn? Did you really explore enough about Brazil to satisfy you?
No, to be really honest, no, and I'll tell you why. Um, I learned about the South more than I learned about the North, and that's where I feel like I am lacking in terms of a true understanding of how Brazil really works. Like everything that I have in terms of Brazil is from a Southern perspective. You know, like you get like São Paulo, Rio, Belo Horizonte, you know, like those places, which are richer areas of Brazil, you know. So I get like, I feel like I got a European feel of Brazil. You know, I didn't really get the South American feel of Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that like I feel like I know about Brazil, but I don't know like the other side of Brazil, the not to say the poor, but the less fortunate side, if you understand what I mean. You know,
Mm-hmm.
because their interpretation might be a little bit different in terms of, all right, well, they do this there, but we do this here, you know. So it's like getting a true understanding and be like, okay, well, all right, let me meet you in the middle ground right there.
Mm-hmm. And what made you decide to leave? What was it that caused you
Um,
to leave and go somewhere else?
my wife got a job here. Um, my wife got a job here in the United States. We just packed up shop. She was just like, all right, there's an opportunity there. Want to come? I was like, of course I want to come. I'm not going to leave you alone to go there by yourself. And then we packed up shop and then we came here.
Did you see it as seeking greener pastures? Did you see the United States as a better opportunity?
It was in the beginning. It was, you know, like it was because at the time, one of the things that was like the deciding factor was the slippage of the dollar. Like when I got to Brazil, Brazil was still 1-to-1 with the US dollar. So it was just like that was even one of the reasons why I went to Brazil. And it was just like, okay, well, I can be in Brazil and it's like 1-to-1. I'm actually making US dollars. So I'm good, you know. Then by the time we left, it was almost close to 5.
Yeah.
You know, it was like 5, and like everybody was like, "Oh, but you're complaining about 5. You should have been here when it was like 32, 45, 90. Why are you complaining about 5?" I'm like, it takes me 5 times more to get $1. And they were like, "No, but it's okay. It'll be okay." I'm like, "All right, if you say so."
that's some eternal optimism for Brazilians.
And that is Brazil for you in a nutshell. They are always optimistic. It could be pouring down lava outside. They're like, "Don't worry about it. We can have a barbecue." It's like it's lava outside. No worry. It's good. It's good lava. It's hot lava, and we can have a barbecue. They're always optimistic, and that's what I love about them. They're always optimistic. They can always see the better side of a bad situation.
That's true.